start with some introductions, and I'm just going to call out names because I know everybody's in a different order. So Judy, you are on my upper left. We'll start with you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Judy Siegel. I'm a senior staff attorney at Bono Partnership. And as you're going to hear, we provide free legal services to about 900 nonprofits throughout New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Judy. And Rafi?
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Rafi Stern. I am Judy's counterpart and counterpart organization at Lawyers Alliance for New York. I'm a staff attorney there. I work in the Economic Opportunity Program area. And as you'll hear, we do largely what Pro Bono Partnership does, but we serve organizations serving low-income people in the 5 boroughs of New York. And I just wanted to note also, Maria Kesey is on the line, and she's a legal intern who's been helping me with a lot of projects.
That's great. Welcome. And Aisha?
Hi, Aisha Benson. I'm the CEO of Nonprofit Finance Fund. So we have something in common in that we primarily serve community-centered nonprofit organizations throughout New York, but we also have a presence in some other states as well.
And Kevin?
I'm Kevin Metlicky. I'm the president and CEO of Alternatives Federal Credit Union. We're located in Ithaca, New York, and we serve several counties in the Finger Lakes area of New York State.
And Jules?
Hey everyone, I'm Jules Steinheber, Director of Membership with Inclusive. We are a CDFI and we also serve CDFI credit unions throughout the country, based in the city.
Thanks, Jules. And Maria, if you want to say hi, I know Rafi kind of introduced you, but you can say hi.
Hi, I'm Maria. I'm a legal intern at Lawyers Alliance, and I work closely with Rafi and a few other attorneys there.
Thanks, Maria. And Victoria?
Hi, Victoria Dooley with the Adirondack Economic Development Corporation. We are in Saranac Lake, but serve 14 counties with our CDFI across the greater North Country.
Great. And Carolyn?
Everybody, I'm Carolyn Edsel-Vetter. I'm the Learning Program Manager for Cooperative Fund of the Northeast. We provide financing to all sorts of cooperatives throughout New England and New York.
Thank you. And Delia?
Hey, Delia Yarrow, work with the INHS. We are located in Tompkins County in central New York, and we serve the Tompkins and the surrounding counties primarily with mortgage assistance.
Upstate is in the house today. And Kristen?
Oh, hi. First of all, I apologize for my camera. It's non-functional at the moment, so I do apologize. It's not that I don't want you to see me or I to see you. I apologize. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for WEDI, Westminster Economic Development Initiative, and we are a CDFI in Buffalo. And right now we only have about 6 inches of snow, so no worries. But the South towns, of course, are just getting hammered. So it's good to be in Buffalo.
And John Felton, who was with us, who's on the board, but is in Southern Chautauqua County. He's actually in Washington, D.C., he just said, and he's having problems with Wi-Fi, so he may be bouncing on and off. Anthony Crespo, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm actually the senior loan officer here at Genesee Co-op Federal Credit Union based out of Rochester, New York. So also upstate New York. However, we missed the snow, luckily.
And B.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bea Nellenbeck. I'm also here from Alternatives Federal Credit Union, along with Kevin, and I'm the development director here. Glad to be here today.
Great. And JR?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is JR Dorseville from Credit Inc. It's a CDFI operated by SOBRO, the South Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation.
And I had 2 people jump out of order. So my ADD is flaring up right now that I have to go backwards to ask Sarah to say hi.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Sarah Halpern of Business Consortium Fund. We're a CDFI that funds business owners of color operating in supply chains.
Thank you. And Melanie Stern.
Hi, everybody. It's Melanie Stern. I'm the CRA Officer, Director of Consumer Lending at Springbank. We're a CDFI bank based also in the South Bronx.
Great. So I'm going to call us here for now because it's 12:09. So if anybody else comes on, if we have the opportunity, we can do a second round of introductions later. But let me start by introducing myself. I'm Colleen Ryan. I'm the Consulting Executive Director for the New York State CDFI Coalition. And we are so glad that you could join our all hands Zoom today. Many of you know each other, but for any special guests or maybe even for the legal intern, here's an elevator soundbite of what New York State Community Development Financial Institutions, or CDFIs, do. We provide financial services and education for low-income New Yorkers. We leverage federal and private dollars for economic development. We create market-based solutions that provide capital to chronically underserved communities across the state. And we promote responsible alternatives to predatory loans. Since 1995, the New York State CDFI Coalition has been the organizer and catalyst for the strategic initiatives that help CDFIs and the communities they serve. The coalition provides a collective voice, allowing our members to stay locally focused while delivering impact associated with increased scale. That's one of the reasons we launched these all-hands meetings. During the pandemic, the New York State CDFI Coalition board got into the habit of meeting by Zoom once a week at lunchtime. These Friday noon Zooms gave CDFI executives from across the state the chance to compare notes, express frustration, and collaborate on some of the biggest challenges of their careers. We thought it would be a good idea to extend this opportunity to our members and convene a meeting every other month where we could share business updates, celebrate milestones, and give everyone a chance to ask questions. You should have received an agenda in the mail, but the breaking news is that we are planning to return to an in-person conference in March 2023. We'll gather in Albany. We'll cancel the snow while the New York State Legislature is in session. And I'll be working with the coalition board to develop an agenda for the conference, but we welcome your input. Let us know what kind of topics you'd like us to cover, and we'll do our best to provide valuable information. So one of the things that CDFIs are often looking for is information on how they can help their clients. And that's why we've invited our special guest this afternoon. So how can you help your nonprofit borrowers be more effective in their missions? Give them free access to tools to avoid legal crises, risks, and costly mistakes that hamper their ability to serve their clients. Judy Siegel is the Senior Staff Attorney at the Pro Bono Partnership, and Rafi Stern is the Staff Attorney Economic Opportunity of the Lawyers Alliance of New York. And they're here to tell us how they help nonprofit organizations deal with common legal issues. Working together, they provide a full range of business and transactional legal services to nonprofit organizations. And they match volunteer lawyers from major corporations and law firms who have the right expertise to address nonprofit legal needs. We're eager to hear how the staff and volunteer attorneys of both organizations can help you help your clients. So please join me in welcoming Judy and Rafi.
Great. Thank you, Colleen. Judy, did you want to go first or you want me to kick it off?
I've got the screen going. All right, so let's just make sure this works. It does.
Science.
All right, so I'm just going to say on behalf of both Lawyers Alliance and Pro Bono Partnership that nothing we say should be legal, should be construed as legal advice. It's all just information for friends. So Pro Bono Partnership is a legal service provider. We support nonprofits everywhere throughout New York State except for the 5 boroughs, and you're lucky enough to have Lawyers Alliance and Rafi help you. To be eligible, as our slides show, you have to be a nonprofit, tax exempt, or seeking that status, primarily serve the poor or disadvantaged. You guys are all going to fit. Look, your clients are all going to fit into our buckets probably. We help the organization, not the humans. So we provide support for all the business legal needs of our clients. And our real screening criteria is you have to be unable to pay for legal services without impairment to your own programs. And we certainly recognize and want all our nonprofits to have at least a 6-month reserve. So don't feel you can't send a client to us because they have some money in the bank, because that's just silly. Let us say no if we have to, but don't screen yourselves out.
Yeah, and so Lawyers Alliance, operates very similarly. We like Pro Bono Partnership, partner with a network of attorneys at law firms that essentially want to do pro bono work for nonprofit clients. What's really valuable, I think, for the purposes of the people on this call, is that those attorneys are corporate lawyers at some of the biggest law firms in New York City and the surrounding areas. And generally have, the expertise to do sort of financing related work that a lot of CDFIs need. I will say, in terms of, you might be already thinking, well, who do we go to, Pro Bono Partnership or Lawyers Alliance? There's definitely some overlap between our services. You might be a CDFI that is making grants or loans in Westchester and in the 5 boroughs. You can feel free to reach out to either of us. There's definitely some overlap. I think we usually try to do it based on kind of where the majority of activities are. But it's great to see people from across the state, and that's why Judy is on today, because Pro Bono Partnership obviously serves beyond the 5 boroughs, and I'm glad to see it personally because I have been all over New York State. I worked for the Attorney General as an intern in Albany. I went to law school in Ithaca, and I clerked for a judge in Syracuse. So I'm not just a New York City person. I have the state connection also.
And I grew up in Utica. So I love when I see 3015 show up on my phone at work. Makes me happy. And also, if you're really still not sure, if you reach out to me and I think you're better served by Lawyers Alliance, I'll just pick up the phone and call Rafi and vice versa. So our 2 organizations work together all the time. So really don't be concerned about that.
Yep, exactly. So, I think I just wanted to make one other point, and then we'll go through, at a very high level, some of the types of services that we provide. And these are services that we can provide either to your organization directly as the CDFI or to nonprofits that you may be serving in various ways. The one limitation Lawyers Alliance has, and I'll let Judy speak to Pro Bono Partnership's approach, but we do work with some very limited social entrepreneurship organizations. So you don't strictly have to be a 501c3 to qualify for our services. But I wanted to shout out Melanie Stern because she and I found out the hard way that, it is pretty limited, right? So Spring Bank is a for-profit. And so we weren't able to represent them, although Melanie had the great idea for me to come talk to the rest of you and to get Judy involved. So, don't hesitate to reach out if it's someone who, is a very small business and has a very strong social entrepreneurship component. We can definitely consider that as a client. But the vast majority of our clients are 501c3s. So I'll let Judy speak to their client base.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we only support nonprofit organizations. We don't support social entrepreneurs, but we have a really good network of lawyers that we can easily refer you to in addition to Lawyers Alliance. And oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes these lawyers will, if not take your project on pro bono, they oftentimes have a discounted rate for nonprofits or these kinds of organizations. So give us a try. Like if nothing else, think about us. Even if we can't provide the legal services, please think of us as a resource.
Yeah, exactly. And both in the 5 boroughs and actually some organizations that serve nationally, we have referrals not only to law firms like Judy said, but also to other nonprofit legal services providers. So there are sort of our counterparts who provide services to for-profits. And we have a lot of clients, not only in the CDFI context, but just in the context where, they may have an incubator program or something like that, that produces a lot of for-profit organizations. And we always have this issue where we have to decide whether we can take them on. But, this was shocking for me to hear, but even the providers that serve for-profits are looking to bring on more legal matters. I always joke, you can't believe how hard it is to give away legal services. I think business people often have a lot of other priorities. And so, if you feel like, grantees or other partners who might be good to get legal services in the for-profit sphere, definitely don't hesitate to reach out also, even though it's not sort of our core area of service. Great. So just going through these quickly, and then, I know we want to leave some time for questions, and I know you guys have business to get back to also, so we don't want to take up too much of your time. These are just a few examples of the kinds of services that Lawyers Alliance and Pro Bono Partnership can provide, right? So you might have a corporate structuring matter. One interesting thing that comes up a lot is nonprofits with for-profit subsidiaries. That's a structure that we're very familiar with and that we can get attorneys to work through in terms of documentation and tax implications. Contracts is another obviously important area. any kind of organization can enter into a contract. And so we often see clients entering into contracts without any legal review. And, that's obviously not ideal. Employment law is for us a very difficult area to place. There's a tremendous amount of demand for employment law. I don't know if Judy's seeing the same thing, but
Actually, we usually do all right. We also have 2 in-house lawyers who are employment lawyers who provide direct service to our clients. So that's helpful. Sometimes it takes a bit of time to place employee handbooks, but other than that, we can pretty much turn around an employee project within a week. We can find you a volunteer. We have a really good network of employment lawyers.
that's great. And that's a good reminder. We do also have one staff attorney who works on employment issues because they are so numerous. But for, particularly employee handbooks, but even other matters, we're finding that it can take us, up to 2 months to place a matter. Whereas a normal matter, we can, place in 2 or 3 weeks, like Judy was saying. And by normal, I mean pretty much anything else on this list besides employment law. Environmental law, obviously in New York City is particularly relevant in terms of like land use and other ways that nonprofits might want to use the space that they own or control. Intellectual property law is something that's very common. We see that more often than you'd think with nonprofits trying to protect an app or a curriculum or a logo that they've created. Real estate obviously is a very basic one. Regulatory compliance is something that's usually where I think Judy and I come in the most on the sort of nonprofit specific side, because it might be something where we place a matter with a pro bono lawyer who has great, is a finance lawyer, right? And has great expertise in that area. But then when it comes to something that might be related to Charities Bureau regulation, which is a unit of the New York State Attorney General, that's where they might not have any experience at all. And that's kind of where we can add value. And then of course, similarly, tax law and tax exempt status. There's some unique quirks that govern nonprofits that people should be aware of. Obviously, these don't apply in the for-profit context, but I think there are different issues that you'd want to come to us if you're dealing with sort of registration or tax exemption questions with the Charities Bureau.
Right. And I also want to add, because I don't think we put this on the slides, Rafi, that both Lawyers Alliance and Pro Bono Partnership have a robust webinar series that you don't have to be a Pro Bono Partnership client to access. So if you go on our website, my colleague Jen Gradowski, who's an employment lawyer, is doing one on performance reviews on November 30th. And I'm doing one on how to build your best board and run a more effective board meeting on December 1st. We have one, it's employment related, that lawyers from Jackson Lewis are doing for us in the beginning of January. I know because I get the workshop announcements and attend some of Lawyers Alliance workshops as well. So please, by all means, go to both of our websites, be on the lookout for those. And both Lawyers Alliance and Pro Bono Partnership also have a resource line. So if you're not a client, we can't give you specific legal advice, but we do provide general resources. And we have a large library of on-demand webinars and articles. And I know that Rafi does also.
I'm glad that you brought that up, Judy, because that's one of the things that I thought, given how busy our members are, not everyone's going to be able to take this in real time, but we've already had a request for the PowerPoint deck. So I trust that you'll be willing to let us share that. And then also I can share the information on the hotlines and the resource libraries, because I think those are really great tools that people will be able to avail themselves of at their convenience. So Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And our resource call hotline is listed on the very last slide. And like Judy said, it's really important because you don't have to be a client or even a nonprofit. You can just be an individual to call and ask a question. Part of our mission is to, promote knowledge of nonprofit law generally. So we don't give legal advice on that hotline, but if it takes less than an hour of research, we'll try to give relevant information and point people in the right direction. And I think that can be really helpful in a lot of cases.
Yeah, we think an educated public makes the whole sector run better. So we're really committed to it as well. It's part of our mission.
That's great. Okay, so I think we can skip the next 2 slides and go into sort of some other categories that we work on. Yeah, so, I think some of you on the call are nonprofits yourselves. Incorporating a nonprofit is obviously something that we can work on. That's sort of fundamental to what we're doing. So if you have an individual, maybe an individual who's interested in starting something, but they don't know whether it's going to be a for-profit or a nonprofit, you can direct them to us also, and we can sort of talk them through that and decide whether it's going to be good to incorporate a nonprofit. For your purposes, I guess this is just a reminder, but obviously, if you're a nonprofit, your certificate of incorporation governs what you do. So it's something that you should be consulting, and can always give one of us a call about if you're concerned that maybe your activities as a CDFI have sort of gone outside of the bounds of the certificate of incorporation. Next slide. Okay, so then, applying for tax exemption, obviously related to incorporation, it's usually the next step where organizations apply for 501c3 status. Another thing we can talk with people about is whether C3 status is right for them. There might be organizations that want to become a 501c4, in which they're not doing charitable activity, but they're considered a social welfare organization. Or they might want to apply under, another sort of more obscure part of the code. Obviously, you can see there are 27 different types. I can't even say I'm familiar with all of them. Probably 5 of them are what we use regularly. But we represent 1 or 2 chambers of commerce, which are 501c6 organizations. Again, the vast majority being C3, but want to give that as an opportunity. And that's the kind of thing you might call the resource call hotline about. In order to sort of gain more information about some different options. And then governance, right? That's the other thing that we can work on. And then I'll turn it over to Judy for a minute. Governance impacts really any organization, but nonprofits have, in particular, some unique duties that require board members to be able to exercise those duties in a reasonable way. And, I think we have some governance presentations, like Judy mentioned, that are really helpful on our website. And then if people watch those and have questions from there, they can always get in touch. Next slide. Okay, so I think I'll skip this one and turn it over to Judy, and then we'll open it up to questions when she's done.
Right, we're just going to quickly run through some of the legal issues that bubble to the surface most often with our nonprofit clients. That was sort of what we wanted to do for you, was highlight these issues for when your own organizations are working or when you're working with nonprofits. So worker-related issues, probably our number 1 issue that comes into Pro Bono Partnership, and I'm assuming Lanny as well. So frequently we get the employee versus independent contractor discussion. Every nonprofit wants any worker they pay to be an independent contractor. It is cheaper, but as we always tell our clients, just because you want it to be so does not make it so. So it's a very nuanced analysis that gets done. It depends on a whole large number of factors. If you have any doubt, you should be consulting an attorney. And I also just want to highlight in general that it does not matter if you get a piece of paper signed by the worker that says, I'm an independent contractor. If it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck, whether the duck told you it was a cow or not. So please remember, a person cannot sign away their rights to be an employee, really important. Exempt versus non-exempt is another major issue that we spend a lot of time with our clients. It basically gets to whether the worker gets overtime after 40 hours. There are certain hurdles that must be met before you actually even begin the kind of nuanced analysis that needs to take place, and that is a salary trigger. The salary is different across New York State. So in New York City, Westchester, and Long Island, both Nassau and Suffolk, if the worker doesn't make $58,500 a year, does not matter what their job responsibilities are, they will always be entitled to overtime. So that's just something that you should be very aware of. You just need to understand who's working, how they're working, how much money they're making, and what their responsibilities are. But again, I tell our clients all the time, you shouldn't be doing this yourself. You should be talking to a lawyer. And then, of course, we have the ever-changing employment laws. COVID compliance was the perfect example about that. Personnel policies and procedures, really important. The laws change all the time. Some are legally required in New York State. You need to have anti-harassment discrimination laws. Others, if you have even one part-time employee now, are legally required, the whistleblower policy. Others are at the employer's discretion, but they should be reviewed every couple of years at least to make sure that they're compliant with the law, but also how you're operating, because it doesn't do you any good to have a policy and then not follow the policy. I always refer my clients to that Seinfeld sketch where Jerry talks about, well, you took my reservation, but you didn't have the car, right? You've got to actually comply with your own policies, or you're breaking all kinds of, well, fiduciary duties and possibly the law also. So please be aware of that. And then, of course, there are issues around hiring people, offer letters, background checks, ban the box laws, accommodations. You're understanding your obligations to make reasonable accommodations, the process that has to go on, and it is important that there be a process, understanding leaves of absence, the different overlays of whether it's city, state, federal, county. There's a lot of interwoven analysis that goes on. Often reminds me of when you're back in algebra, in middle school or high school, and one train leaves at this time, another train leaves at that time. There's a lot that goes on with understanding leaves and accommodations. And then, of course, performance management, review, and termination. All issues you want to be aware of. And again, I would just point you towards my colleague Jen's really good webinar on performance evaluations.
Judy, before I forget, what is ban the box?
Oh, ban the box. It has to do with whether you can ask if someone's been arrested or convicted of a crime, and at what stage of the employment process or the interview process you can actually engage in that conversation and how you do it.
I thought we weren't allowed, period.
You can at some point, and depending on what the role is and what kind of work you do. So again, nothing in employment law is easy. I think it's the easiest way to say, which is why it's our #1 problem that our nonprofits call us with. Fundraising, I would say Rafi and I probably spend a lot of time discussing fundraising, registration. Now, first of all, there's how do you document the contributions you've received? There are very specific IRS rules around this, and you need to understand it. Also, in terms of documenting contributions, do you have a gift acceptance policy? It's really very, very valuable, believe it or not. Commercial co-ventures, those are transactions where a for-profit business agrees to give you a percentage of their profits. Now they're going to use your name probably, and you want to have a contract defining that. But if Bob's Deli says, oh, we'll give you 10% of everything we make in October, that would be a commercial co-venture if Bob's Deli is a for-profit business regularly engaged in that trade or business. And you'd want to have a contract that surrounds that agreement. There are issues of multi-state solicitation. I'm physically sitting in Westchester right now. My nonprofits fundraise in Fairfield County, Connecticut, and my Rockland County clients, they fundraise across the border in New Jersey all the time, multi-state. Charitable gaming, just so you know, raffles, bingo, it's all actually governed by the New York State Gaming Commission. You have to follow that agency's rules. And then crowdfunding and technology-driven fundraising. So all those different social media platforms and fundraising platforms, all kinds of contractual implications, registration implications. You need to understand the difference between the kinds of platforms or the types of platforms you're considering. California actually just put out a really robust set of rules around this. I would not be surprised if New York followed shortly, but these are all issues that you should be thinking about when you fundraise. Rafi, you want to add anything or just keep going?
I think just keep going. That's it's all the same issues that Lawyers Alliance deals with.
Working with volunteers. First of all, let me say, you can't have somebody who works 9 to 5 and gets paid to, let's say, open the mail and then designate them a volunteer from 5 to 7. That doesn't work. So, and nonprofits like to do that all the time. So are your volunteers properly classified? Are they really volunteers? How are you screening them? What are you doing to make sure that they're the right fit, that they're physically able to do this role? Perhaps you need to background check them depending on the kinds of work you're doing or your nonprofit clients are doing. Do you have a procedure manual or policies? Do you have a robust system for working with your volunteers? Do you have releases from your volunteers? So if anything goes wrong while they're working for you, you're not going to be held liable. Or if you get sued, you'll get indemnified. And then do you have appropriate insurance? So for example, some of our nonprofits work with aging in place. They work with senior citizens to allow them to stay in their homes. And it's great, but part of what they do is they drive these older citizens to doctor's appointments, to the grocery store, to any number of different activities. Well, what if they get into a car accident? Do you have coverage to make sure that your nonprofit is protected? And even more importantly, in your agreement with that volunteer, have you said that their insurance would be primary? All kinds of implications around working with volunteers. Intellectual property, as Rafi mentioned, is a lot of the work we do. So it's protecting your names and logos, understanding the fact that you may not have to register or even be able to register with the Federal Patent and Trademark Office. And then how do you do it? Should you do it? And are you able to do it? Just because you want your name doesn't necessarily mean that you are able to trademark your name. Protecting materials and curriculum and original works through copyright. There's a whole federal office. Again, do you need to do it? Your common law rights to it. How do you do it? And I think Rafi probably does a lot of counseling around this as well. How is this income stream opportunity for you? Perhaps you can copyright a program or a curriculum that you've developed and license it to others. So let's think about it and what steps do you need to take to protect that right and provide an ongoing income stream for you. So we're always happy to talk to our clients about that. The next one, understanding fair use and avoiding an inadvertent infringement. We spend a fair amount of time because our clients seem to think that as long as they attribute somebody else's intellectual property to the creator of that property, they're able to use it however and whenever they want. That's generally not true. So we counsel around the use of other people's IP. And then we also help make sure that the nonprofit's getting what they're entitled to. If they are in fact either paying, well, if they're licensing out their materials, or are they really paying what's appropriate if they're using someone else's? So there's a lot in the intellectual property arena. In terms of e-commerce and the internet, we always urge our clients, if they have a website, to have a terms of use policy that governs how people can use and interact with their website, the information on the website, what they can put onto your website. Some are interactive, others are not. Privacy policies, how that nonprofit is using the data that people provide to them, things like credit card information, addresses, email addresses. Website development contracts, we've bumped into several where a lot of the services our clients are paying for, they already have. They've come to us, they've gotten their terms of use and privacy policy. There's no need to be paying a website developer to do that very same work for them. So those website development contracts are really dense. They're really, really, really dense. And we find it very helpful to have lawyers who specialize in this area review those contracts with our clients and for our clients to make sure that our clients understand what they're signing on for, what they're paying for, and to determine if those are really the services they need. And then again, understanding your obligations when you collect and store certain types of information, personal information, credit card information. There's a lot to all of this. Right, privacy flows naturally from the internet discussion. Creating and implementing policies to protect confidential information. Back in March of 2020, when the whole world was thinking about other things besides privacy, New York State implemented the SHIELD Act. I can't remember what exactly it stands for, but it's New York State's privacy policy. And in a nutshell, it says you have to have a policy about protecting private information that is appropriate for your organization. Now, do you, small nonprofit, have to have the same policy that MasterCard has? No, that is not reasonable. But you do have to have a written policy and you need to know what it says and you need to follow those steps, especially if something goes wrong. You need to have a plan in place for what happens. So that's some of our privacy work. Also, for certain clients who have HIPAA, personally protectable health information, we work with them on creating those policies to make sure that they have legally compliant policies that also comply with or comport with how they operate. I tell our clients all the time, we can write you the most beautiful compliant policy, but if you're not going to follow it or it's not how you're doing it, it's actually worse than useless because you've now committed to do something that we all know you're not going to do. And that's oftentimes where the problems arise. And then finally, social media usage by employees. Huge issue. We had a big conversation about that internally at PVP the other day about, oh, it doesn't really matter about what, but we ourselves take a look at that policy all the time for us too. And then finally, real estate. So our lawyers review leases. They help our clients enter into leases. They help our clients get out of leases sometimes. When our clients are being kicked out of lease space, we've had some real successes by bringing in lawyers who've taken a really good close look at the lease and said to our clients, this is a win for you because now that they're kicking you out of this space, they've got to move you to a better building. They get to, you get to have them pay for it, all these great things. And our client just thought, oh my gosh, the world is ending. And in reality, it was like, woo, time to celebrate. Our client just got free upgrade real estate and a kicker on that lease. So we do a lot of time reviewing leases, addressing the changes, looking at land use, negotiating with contractors. Our clients often say, especially in the real estate arena, that they go from feeling like David versus Goliath to being even bigger than Goliath. Because you have a landlord, and like, oh, I'm the landlord, I'm gonna have my lawyer come in. And then, you reach out to me or Rafi, we're like, great, you want the head of real estate at Wild Gotcha to do this? He's volunteered or she's volunteered. Go you. So it really often, I don't even want to say levels the dynamic. I think it really tips it in your favor often. And then sometimes we purchase and sell property, which again would loop Rafi and I in because there are some very specific nonprofit law considerations to those things. So these are just corporate changes, right? Last one. Look, I think we all know that it's a changing landscape for nonprofits, for the whole world, but definitely for nonprofits. We've seen a lot more collaborations, strategic alliances, mergers, forming subs, for-profit subs, nonprofit subs, you name it. And we have been spending more and more time addressing changes to corporate structure or creating new relationships. That's something we have a whole host of corporate lawyers who love to dig into immediate restructuring, not in the bankruptcy sense, although we do that sometimes, but a recreating or rebuilding sense. So we do all that kind of work also. And then finally, contracts. You sign them, you're liable under them just like anyone else. So we want you to understand you have contracts with your vendors, your fiscal sponsors. Waivers are a form of contract. Independent contractor agreements need some very specific language. We want to make sure that the contracts accurately reflect the parties' understanding. You understand your obligations and your rights under those contracts and what happens if something goes wrong. So I would say just take these slides home with you. I'll send them to Colleen afterwards and she'll disperse them. But remember, each of these slides and these bullet points, these topics should be something that goes off in the back of your head. And if one of these situations bubbles to the front, then I hope, and I think Rafi hopes as well, that you think, wow, maybe this would be a great time to reach out and talk to a lawyer because this seems to be a legal issue. And the answer is it probably is. And as often as not, Rafi or me or someone at our organizations will be able to help you with it. And we hope you reach out to us for that.
That's really great, Judy and Rafi. Thank you both so much for sharing this wonderful information, which I will be passing on to our members and sharing on our resource page as well. I would now encourage you all to ask questions. We have Rafi and Judy for another couple of minutes. So if you have questions for them, this would be the time to ask. Don't all jump at once. Don't be shy.
I don't know if anyone, or does anybody have a question? I have a comment, quick comment.
Go ahead.
So, Judy and Rafi, I have to say hi. I joined late, but we have a team of, we have Heidi O'Hara and Nick Aquino helping us from Lawyers Alliance. And Rafi, hello, we've exchanged so many emails. And they have a team of attorneys from Devervoice and Plimpton helping us to, edit and, sort of draft the New York taxi medallion loan refinancing. So I just want to mention that to the other CDFIs. So we have this long relationship with Lawyers Alliance. Just wanted to say hello.
Thanks, Yanki.
Thanks. Thanks. And it's great to see you. And I know there's some other clients that have been on the call, so appreciate that. And Hedy O'Hara is our legal director. I should mention one thing. I'm going to be on paternity leave very soon. So, everyone's on our website. It's easy to get in touch with Lawyers Alliance, but you can also feel free to reach out to Hedy, who is our legal director.
And I guess that I don't have anything as exciting as Rafi's news. My children are grown up, but I'm going to be in and out for the next few weeks on vacation because turns out it's almost December and I still had 3 weeks I had to use up. I don't quite know where the year went.
Yeah, I think we're all in the same boat on that. So I guess I would just say that anyone who has further questions or has questions on behalf of clients or, how they might connect with these two organizations, I will be sharing the information. I'll share the video recording and I'll share the PowerPoint deck and Judy and Rafi's contact information. So
I just put mine right in, but please do share it. And I'm going to email you the deck afterwards.
Terrific.
All right, then we'll then have a great week and happy Thanksgiving to all. Rafi, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
And good luck to all of you in the snow belt.
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Take care.
So long.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Okay, so CDFI members, feel free to stick around. We have a couple more things to discuss now that our special guests have left.